Hi, everyone. My name is Cassie Fabio. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Curriculum and Research Manager here at Campus Vote Project. For some of you, this might be your first political professions panel that you've attended. For others, maybe you've hit quite a few of them. I'm super excited. We have a little bit of a change in format that Katie, one of our national programming interns, is going to talk to us a little bit more about in just a moment. Just a little bit of housekeeping here for y'all. If you would like to use closed captioning, that is an option that should be available to you on the bottom of your screen. If it's not, automatically popping up for you, click more and it should create that option for you. And then the other thing is, if you are a democracy fellow, do not forget that this will count toward an hour or so on your timesheet. So don't forget to track this once you get done here. This is Katie's first time hosting one of our political professions panels, and she worked over the summer to reconceptualize what they look like. So I'm super excited for tonight, and I'm super thankful to have all of you on. So I'm going to turn it over to Katie to get us started, and thank you.
Yes, that was lovely. Hello, everybody. My name is Katie Ellison. The pronouns I use are she, her, and hers. I was once a fellow, but I am now the national programming intern, or one of them. And today we're going to do one of the panels. And as Cassie said, if you've attended one of these before, it might look a little bit different. But for the most part, it still is based in our lovely panelists. We have 3 panelists today, and I'm going to go ahead and ask them to introduce themselves in a minute. But with that, I just want to say it'll start with a Q&A, but we're more than welcome to open it up for questions and a little bit more of a dialogue focus. This is an opportunity for you guys to really connect with people in the field that are doing things maybe you want to do one day, or at least you want to find out more and see if it's going to be a good fit for you. So this is much more of an open space. Feel free to drop questions in the chat at any time. So you can send them to just Cassie or just me if you don't want everyone to see your questions. But I just want to encourage everybody to know that this is a space for you. That's why we put on these events. So do not hesitate to ask questions or even sort of react to things that are being said, because we'd love to hear your opinions on this lovely topic today, which is transitioning from undergrad to the civic professions. This is our first political professionals panel of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our lovely panelists today, please take a moment and introduce yourselves. You can share your name, your current position, and what the main responsibilities of your position are. If some of our fellows have never met you, just to get a feel of who you are and what you do.
All right, I'll jump first. That's usually what I do. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you guys today. My name is Amanda LaRoche. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the North Carolina State Coordinator for Campus Vote Project. So the majority of my job is sort of broken down into 3 things. It's working with fellows, democracy fellows, voter-friendly campus, and then hosting our annual summit every year. But a majority of my work throughout the year goes to recruiting and working with our democracy fellows. Everyone on this call who isn't with CVP is who I get to work with, but here in North Carolina.
Hi, everyone. I can go next. My name is Justa Lopez. I use she, her, ella pronouns, and I'm the Arizona State Coordinator here with the Campus Vote Project. So Amanda pretty much summarized our position very, very well. I do the same thing except here in Arizona. So I work with fellows, campus advisors, so on and so forth. And then I'm also currently attending grad school at ASU full-time as well.
And then I think I'm the last one. So hi, I am Lauren Schueler. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the newest employees at the Campus Vote Project. I am the Curriculum and Research Associate. So I work directly with Cassie doing kind of our national programming stuff. You would have seen me on orientations, things like your discussion blocks, all of those kind of things, these programs, whatnot. I'll also mention that in addition to my day job, I am a council member on my local city council. So I represent one of our wards. So I'm here to talk kind of about what that looks like in conjunction with doing a full-time job and serving as an elected official. And prior to joining CVP, I was working on the University of Oklahoma's campus, supporting students that are doing work just like you are as Democracy Fellows. We're not a CVP state, But we had support through one of our departments, or I guess I should say centers, to help support students doing the work just like you are. So I'm pretty well informed on what that work looks like on a college campus as well. So that's me.
Amazing. I love you all. I'm so excited you're here tonight to talk to us just about, again, that sort of sticky transition of both, or as you are, Justa, in the middle of the transition to some extent, from undergrad to the sort of real adult civic profession 9-to-5 world. This might be a bit of a stumper, but I feel like this is one that comes up a lot of the time. For my first question, how did you know that this was the 9-to-5? Yeah, 9-to-5 or virtual, whenever you can, right? How did you know that this was the path or the profession for you? Was there the stars have aligned moment, or did you fall into this naturally? And I'll ask in the reverse order you answered the first question. So Lauren, do you want to answer that first?
Sure. This is this is tough, and I'll say first off that your path is not probably going to be linear in any kind of capacity. So what you think now might be the exact steps that you're taking. You're like, oh, I have a 5-year plan. I have a 10-year plan. These are all the things that I'm going to do. I'm a planner. I love plans, but just know that like your life throws you twists and turns and things are going to come up at you and you're not going to realize. And so I can't say that as an undergrad or as a high school student or even as a campus administrator that I would have thought that serving in public office was on my trajectory. But I think having worked in the space for so long and working with students in, trying to get them to connect to local government and state politics and things kind of at a deeper level got me more involved in understanding issues that affect our local community, how I'm connecting and, uplifting young voices in that, and being, that I'm also at this current juncture, the youngest person that is serving on our city council at 35. So, that I'm not the youngest person who I've ever served, but in a college town, I think that young voices, specifically college students, are really important. And so how do I connect those together? But I'll also walk it back because I didn't know that being a campus administrator and doing specifically civic engagement work was also in my future. I got an undergrad in anthropology. I thought I was going to be doing, history work or, things like that. And realizing that I wanted to be in the education space and connecting with that ultimately led me to a master's program in adult and higher education, which really centered around, students and connecting programmatic things. And I happened to land as a graduate student in the center that I ultimately worked for 10 years or 12 years, I guess, which was a congressional archive, and they did civic engagement work. And so I left the space for a little bit right around 2016. What was happening in 2016? That election was crazy and really pivotal for our country. Here's my cat doing crazy things. But, I felt like, I was doing something completely different, still in education in a way. I was coaching student athletes, but I realized that my calling was something much bigger than that. And I really missed the work that I was doing foundationally to help protect our democracy, to help expand our democracy, to help work with students in that capacity. And I got an opportunity to kind of come back to the old work that I was doing in Oklahoma. And so since then, since 2017, I've been full in, laser focus, ready to go. So I've got lots to say, but your path is not linear and you will figure things out as you kind of go.
I'll reiterate the question. How did you know that this was the path or the profession for you? Justa, do you want to answer next?
Yes, I want to just kind of vocalize what Lauren had said, that, your path to civic engagement is definitely not linear at all. for instance, for me, during the 2016 election, I was a junior in high school. So I was getting ready to go to college, you know, take all my exams. It was a pretty stressful like time for me. And on top of that, we were going through this really big election that everybody was making a big deal. So I was like, okay, I think I need to start investing into this. This seems like a big deal. So I started to invest during the 2016 election. And I went from wanting to be a business major to starting off college as a political science major. And once I hit college, it was a pretty clear road for me that I did want to work in politics. I wanted to work in the public servant field, but I just didn't know exactly where. And throughout my undergrad, I was actually an AmeriCorps public ally. So I did a lot of service work through them. I had joined other coalitions and organizations that were very like on the ground type of service work. And I ended up deciding when I started applying for grad school that I wanted to have something with a little bit more responsibility, something that was more Arizona focused. And so I started off grad school. I'm currently in my last year of my MPA program. So I will graduate in May. Thank you guys. And once I started there, I kind of just happened to come across this position with CVP, and it really excited me because I don't think I noticed how important college students were in terms of elections, how important voting is, and obviously like campus barriers that we have on campuses. So that work kind of excited me as a grad student myself. I started to notice that, yeah, there were certain things that I wasn't very well versed or educated as an undergrad. So I definitely carry that with me through this work. And I'm not sure what the next steps are. I don't think anybody really does when they do civic engagement work. It's really much like what's needed, what other resources do we need, what resources do we already have that we should be, you know, sharing out and making accessible. So yeah.
And Amanda, I'll turn it to you too. Did you know right off the bat that this was the path or profession for you, or did it sort of come up as maybe Lauren and Justa have said in a bit of a non-conventional way?
No, there were like zero rules. And if I was 18, graduating high school, where I went to a very small Christian high school in California, where my graduating class had 12 whole people in it, I would have told you that in 4 years, I would be teaching high school English where I graduated from. I now live in North Carolina and in the process went from California to Louisiana for my master's, then South Louisiana for my PhD, moved to Alabama for 5 years, got out of Alabama after 5 years and ended up here. None of which was on my path, none of which makes any sense. And all of it involved doing things that I knew I didn't know needed to be done. And I didn't know I was the person who needed to do it until I was thrown into it. My area of expertise is 20th century cookbooks. And my PhD is in folklore. So voting makes perfect sense. Really what happened is I moved to Alabama after I finished my PhD. We were in Lower Alabama, just outside of Mobile. I had lived in the South at that point for almost 10 years. I was now in the Deep South. It was a very, very different place. It was also the 2016 elections. And like most people I knew, my world got turned upside down because as a woman who had spent so long working very hard and is smart and capable and all these things, suddenly it turns out being a woman just wasn't enough. And that was a very hard thing to wrap my head around as a grown adult, even. I got involved in my local community. I saw the impacts of institutionalized racism, systemic racism, long-standing, totally socially acceptable in that area, white supremacy, and it was devastating. So after working on my PhD, where you take this really big project and you really don't have any idea what you're doing. I took that same energy and I put it into what ended up being partisan politics in Alabama. I went from managing a small county commission, God, I couldn't even remember the name of it, a small county commission to, during midterms 4 years ago this time, to coordinating the entire county, which also then extended into 5 other counties for people who were running for office, to becoming vice chair of our county. 2 months after I became vice chair, I had to resign because I was then running a congressional campaign with somebody I had met 2 months before, and it was absolute kismet. We ended up running the most successful campaign in that area in 30 years. We had all kinds of fundraising records that we broke. We crushed it. We were endorsed by sitting senators. And then there was a pandemic, so things got weird real quick. Through that entire time, I can tell you though that it didn't matter that my area of expertise was like Martha Stewart. You're gonna go get a political science degree and you think this is gonna tell me how to do all of these things. It's going to give you very big theory and concepts to understand, and there's going to be certain parts of it, but you're going to figure out what you have to do when some guy tells you he's looking for street money because he'll go put your yard signs out, and you got to trust that this person who has $1,500 worth of yard signs that you literally met under a bridge at Mobile Bay isn't going to murder you or take all of your signs and the $1,500 worth. That stuff isn't there. There's no playbook for that. But which is to say, especially because I was also at the same time a professor, the skills that you actually learn in school, the things to take on really big projects, that critical thinking that every class starting at 101 makes you participate in, and you hate it because it's like, well, I don't care about this project. I don't care about what you're talking about. Thinking and being able to make big connections, take on big projects, articulate what it is you're learning and the area in which you want to go with that is exactly what you use in professional politics. It looks different and it feels scary. Even when I decided last year, I'm like, I want to get out of academics. I love academics. There's no bad days in the classroom. But I had this big resume and I was like, how do I turn this into a normal job? You know, that isn't like being a teacher. I paid somebody to do my resume. I teach writing for a living. And I was like, I can't write this. But it turns out all of those school skills, the learning skills, are actually very applicable. And we had just moved to North Carolina because Alabama is not the place you want to be during a pandemic. And like, I had to go. This job came up, and it takes working with college students, which is just absolutely my favorite thing in the whole world, and getting folks to vote, which I'm so incredibly passionate about. And it got to be one thing. And now I'm like, please don't ever make this organization go away, because I don't know what I would do if this wasn't what I was doing. It's the things that I love. But it's a lot of being in the right place at the right time and understanding that failure is a learning experience. And also, I know this is being recorded. This is the best professional advice I will give anybody, especially in the political sphere. Nobody knows shit about shit. Everybody puts on a face that says, look at me, I'm fancy, I'm a professional. They don't know what they're doing. You're on the phone still with your friends going, hey, real quick question. What the heck is this? And you just fake it till you make it. And being part of fellowships, being part of just your coalitions on campuses, there's a lot of this that eventually becomes the people that you know. So when I was getting those calls about, hey, I can come put your yard signs in, if you just meet me under this bridge by the bay, the person that I called ended up being my senator's campaign manager, because those were the networks that I had built. And the network building is really the biggest part, which sounds super gross because I am like not a joiner. So it's a very hard thing. So all of this is to say, nobody knows anything. They're all just faking it in this particular work. And whatever it is you think you're going to do today is most likely probably not at all the path that you will end up on. And it is 1,000 times better because you didn't stay on that path.
That is like what an inspiring note to end that like lovely question answer on. Sort of building on that, a lot of times in the transition from undergraduate work to civic professions, there's a default in there for a lot of people that grad school, of course, is a piece of that puzzle. And a lot of times that's becoming the standard. An undergraduate degree, a lot of times, maybe whether it be true or not, sometimes people think that might not be enough. For all of you who are either in graduate school getting your master's or have completed it at this point, what made you decide to go to grad school? Did you ever consider not going? Did you take a gap year? Fill us in a little bit on how that period of, I see Amanda laughing, Lauren laughing, so I'll let you go first, but fill us in on that period of time.
I'm laughing because when I was in my undergrad, I said, I'm never getting a master's. This is exactly like, I'm done here. Like, I'm getting my degree and this is going to be it. Well, fun fact, I graduated in 2009, was just right during the like massive recession. And so there were no jobs. I was actually at the time trying to do officer candidate school for the military. Oh, P.S. by the way, the military was downsizing at the time. So there were way less spots, even for like people like me who are women. They even slots for, you know, minority or candidates within the military, like those were no longer. I did take a gap year. My mom was like, what are you doing? I was working at my stepdad's restaurant, you know, waiting tables, helping in the back, like, you know, with the family business. And my mom looked at me and she was like, I'm going to need you to go back to school or get a job, like a real career job. And so I chose to get a master's at the time. So this is where I say, like, your path is not linear. It's like, what's happening to you? And so like, it was kind of a forced back to school for me. Honestly, it ended up being the best thing that I think possibly could have happened for me, because it set in motion kind of all of these next steps that would potentially fall down the line. I'm glad that I didn't go into the military. I'm glad that this is the path that my life kind of veered off into, because once I hit grad school, I got a graduate assistantship at the place that was doing civic engagement work and women's leadership and trying to get more women into politics. And it was really kind of my training ground for all of the things that I'm doing now. Fun fact, I started out at an MPA program. I didn't finish in an MPA program. Like, who changes their degree program in their master's? Me, I did that. That's crazy. But like, it's okay. Like, like this idea that we have 18-year-olds like trying to figure out their whole life at 18 is like mind-boggling to me. Like, I had no idea what I wanted to do at 18. Like, I think I'm finally starting to figure it out at 35. So like, give yourself some like grace and patience and like give yourself a chance to navigate all of the things that are like coming at you. One of the things too that I wanted to say, kind of back as Amanda was talking on the last point, was like, there are going to be opportunities in your path where you are going to have to take a leap, and you're going to have to jump off a cliff. It's going to feel that way, metaphorically, physically, emotionally, sometimes physically. Like, it is just really scary. And I will tell you that running for office or like trying to serve in public office was one of those extreme moments for me. I don't think that there is anything that can ever prepare you to take that step and to put your name on a ballot. But there are so many, and I know I've gone way off course here, but like, it's okay to be scared and to do it anyway. And I think sometimes grad school can be that for a lot of people. It certainly was for me. I moved from, I went to college in Florida. I'm from Pennsylvania originally, came to Oklahoma for my master's. People are like, why are you going to Oklahoma? Well, I am, 12 years later, still embedded in Oklahoma, doing the work here. And so it has provided an opportunity that I never would have opened myself up to. So, you know, it's kind of wild, but like, take the chances. You don't have to have everything figured out, and it is 100% okay to be scared while you do stuff. Because know that like you've got protections around like support systems and people and things that are gonna, you know, be able to help you kind of land. But you might be in free fall for just a minute, and it's okay.
Yeah, with that, I think one, I love hearing the answers from our panelists, but I think breaking it open to really have the students also be panelists in a sort of way. Cassie dropped a question in the chat for the students on the call, was going to undergrad, that maybe the first big leap you took, or a big change for you. I know for me, it didn't feel like a big change. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, I am doing things that I literally had no, like I leaped and I didn't even know I left, I think. Does anyone else want to share either in the chat or feel free to unmute and answer that question? Was it a big change? And if so, in what way? I can read out loud. Alexa says, yes, it exposed me to so many opportunities I'd never considered. I started as a business major and changed before classes even started and really found new interests. Yeah, changed my major, been there, done that. I started in journalism. That's what made me pick my school. And now I'm like, wait, I took a journalism class freshman year? Like what? Who was that? Bethany says, yes, especially as a high school class of 2020. Ooh, yes. So the transition was different. I'm currently a much different major. Again, we love that. And person than I was when I started, but for the better. I love that.
Katie, I love this, but I have similar experiences to you and Lauren. So for my PhD, I changed my program. So I started my PhD as journalism and I switched it to communication studies. So that's why I study political communication now. And that was like, I mean, I sat and cried with professors trying to figure out what to do. So like, y'all, that uncertainty, I didn't change major until I hit my PhD. So that uncertainty can follow you for multiple degree programs.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And I think like there's power in that too. Like embracing the not knowing is something that is as empowering as it is absolutely terrifying. And accepting that and moving forward, I think is really, really cool. With that, I see nothing else in the chat. I think one, I'm going to say, please drop any questions you've had thus far in the chat right now. Because I would love to questions, statements, reactions. Like this is very much like an, oh my gosh, more, yay. Anthony says, this is my third experience with college. As a non-traditional student, I went from majoring in education to now political science. I appreciate opportunities such as CVP because it's teaching new skills and providing me with new opportunities. Aw, this is lovely. I feel like I'm going to cry or something. Like I just am feeling so good. I don't know about y'all, but I'm like, wow, we can do it, guys. Like,
no, I love that, Anthony. That makes me so like, I just got like overwhelmed with that. And it took me a couple times before college stuck, honestly. I went away so confident. I was gone for a semester and I noped out. I had to go back home because I was like, I just wasn't prepared because, you know, when you go to school with like 4 people, you have no social skills. And so then community college, and then I went off to 4 year in San Diego, and then it finally took, but it took a lot of steps to get there. And there's nothing wrong with that. And kudos for staying with it because it can be really, really hard too.
Yes. Okay, I missed one. I'm in my 5th year and continue to second guess myself in my major, but hearing you all share your experiences makes me feel so heard. Aw, my little heart is gonna explode, everybody.
So the professor in me is gonna come out right now because I did teach for 15 years. So here's the thing that no one's going to tell you is, first of all, one of my favorite pieces of advice came from Amy Poehler, is we should be asking college freshmen, what is it you don't want to do, that you absolutely don't want to do? Walk away from that. That will help you narrow down that. Dude, I can barely count with 10 fingers and I still get math anxiety. So I knew that was not the way, but I wish someone would have given me more insight into that. Your major is incredibly important. because it is just going to help you figure out how to navigate college. I have a degree in communications from the University of California, San Diego, that has the only comm program like that. I'd never learned anything about journalism. It was like this deep, heavy, like social sciences. We had like classes on protest and like how to throw a riot, basically. And I was just like, what? The nerd factor was hard, and I was way out of my skill set. I never really used that degree. At some point, just finish a lot, unless you're going to something like education, or there's very few majors that require you for your next step to truly have this very specific thing that you decided on when you were 18, 19, 20 years old. So get through it, get done. The question that's going to eventually just be asked is, do you have a college degree? And the weird things, it's always great to hear people that end up in the path and in the profession of what their major is. I always like people who you go like, wait, how did that happen? That's a weird thing. And I will say that as myself, I'm a folklore major. If you guys want to talk about like medieval Renaissance theory on the grotesque and carnivalesque, let's throw down. That has nothing to do with anything that is happening here. But it didn't stop me, and it didn't prevent me from getting to where I am now. Yes. So when you said space making the other day, and I was like, that's my girl. So yeah, don't worry about not knowing about your major that much, not feeling confident in your 5th year. Get it done and move on. Just changing that in your mind will make it a little bit easier for you.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much, she said. Yeah, I think it's the framing of it is really important. And especially, at least for me, I'm in my 4th year, my senior year at my university, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot of things happening really fast, and it's all what ifs. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Yes, amazing advice. Amazing advice. Absolutely. I am like, I was joking with one of the other people that helped me, Eugenia, one of the other programming interns, helped me plan this. And we were both like, honestly, as long as we're getting our questions answered, like maybe this is just a way for me to answer all my questions about the transition. No, but I think it's a really relevant topic for a lot of people. And with that, one of my next questions, but I'd love to hear from the chat as well, what students, if they can relate to this. My question is, what is the most challenging part from transitioning from undergrad to the professional realm? And or for the students, what are you most worried about when it comes to the transition? Is it just like literally the day-to-day? Is it money? Is it finding that thing that will stick with you? So if one of the panelists, Justa, I'd love to hear from you. Like, what was the most challenging part as you're sort of in the transition? What is most challenging? And then if anyone else in the chat wants to drop in things they're worried about too.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And kind of just to backtrack to the previous question, because it kind of leads me to this. I'm the oldest daughter in an immigrant household. So college has always been a thing I knew I was going to do. Like I was 5 years old and I knew I was going to go to college because that's what my parents would tell me. So when I ended undergrad and transitioned to grad school, it wasn't anything that took too much thinking, if that makes any sense. Like I knew I was going to take that step. But I think the challenging part for me was during the transition from undergrad to grad school, I ended up graduating a year early with my bachelor's. And with that, I ended up graduating peak COVID time. So it was really weird transition. And then with that, I started grad school during a pandemic. And so my biggest advice on kind of just like obstacles that happen when you are in that midst of transition is I wish I would have definitely given myself a little bit more grace to transition into that role more naturally than have it be so forced. Because definitely now that I'm in grad school, I do feel that stress of, is this exactly, is this degree, is this the degree that suits me the best? What am I doing right after grad school? Do I want to, stay in this realm or maybe explore more? And I didn't give myself a period between undergrad and grad school to really think everything through, because I'm sure as you all know, we experience sort of this like feeling of like having to rush everything that we're doing to be able to like get to the finish line. But either way, we're gonna get to the finish line, no matter how long it takes, no matter if you need to take a little bit of a break and a little bit of a breather, that's okay. A lot of people that tell you to go to grad school have never really gone to grad school themselves. So I think definitely taking that with a grain of salt is really important, and letting yourself be known that, you know what, at least this is what I tell myself, like, I'm 23, I'm figuring out life, I'm in a good position right now, and everything else that comes afterwards is because I'm choosing that for myself and nobody else. So really just being clear with your intentions when you start to transition and giving yourself that grace period, I think is really important, especially for your mental health as students. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I see a couple things in the chat. Yeah, absolutely. I think mentorship, I know on my campus, it's really a big thing they talk about as soon as you get on campus is find a mentor. And it can be really daunting, especially right when you're really young and you're like, how am I supposed to talk to a real adult, right? Like even starting there and then building that like balanced relationship can be really sticky. But I do think CVP is an awesome way to build a variety of mentors. And I found that to be really powerful, to not have maybe one person that I'm super reliant on, but I know like grad school stuff, I can talk to Cassie because she's interested and has done a lot of the things I'm doing. But if I have lots of Michigan logistical questions, I'm going to go to Landon because I know that he will give it to me straight and tell me all the messy details that maybe some of my mentors on my campus will just be there to uplift me. And, having different people for different things is really powerful. Yes. Oh my gosh. People are talking in the chat. This is the best day ever.
Can I answer one of the questions in the chat?
Yes.
I have a couple of other things too that while Justa was talking, I was like, oh yes, this is great. This is really important. But Haley asked in the chat, has anyone been able to find a job that will help pay for grad school? So I talked about my graduate assistantship on my campus. And so most campuses will have some graduate assistantships, GA, GRA, GTA. So graduate teaching assistantship, graduate research assistantship. Those are great places for students to have jobs while on campus. And on my campus, and I think most are like this in some capacity, we got a tuition waiver for doing that, and a stipend on top of the 20 hours of work that we were doing a week within the program that we were, or the place that we were, had placement. Some of those are in your department of study. Some of those are outside, like I was at a center. There are places all over there, some in like residence life or within, food and food service or whatever that might not be connected to your major. So it's helpful to have one that's connected to what you think that you want to study, because I was able to transition my GA into a full-time job on my campus once I graduated with my master's. So I got a little lucky with that. But those are kind of places that you might start looking at, like what are the GA opportunities? Sometimes, and many times, they're pretty sought after. So they can be hard to find, but a lot of times you get them connected through like applying through the department or, whatever, there's funding for that type of thing. I also want to mention that grad school doesn't necessarily have to be the path that you take, because you need to ask yourself, what do I want to do? Is a master's going to help me succeed in that space? Does the money that I'm going to pay justify spending 2 years out of the workforce to get this degree? What is my benefit to going to grad school? Now, the question may be absolutely yes, or like there are no jobs. Like when I went to grad school, trying to figure kind of those things out. Like there are other reasons to go to grad school than just like, I need this for whatever job I'm going to get. But it's helpful to kind of do some cost benefit analysis of how much am I going to get paid in this job that I'm seeking? Is it worth taking on, you know, an exorbitant additional amount of student loan debt to do these 2 years? Or how can I offset that cost with getting a job or on campus or tuition waivers or things? Like, how do you balance all of those things? I know that sounds really overwhelming, but it's just tools and resources in like your toolbox to think about when you're thinking about grad school. And I know that mostly what I heard from my graduating seniors on my campus was like, how do I find a job? What's the job? Like, how am I going to get paid to do the thing? So I know that that's probably one of the things that I hear students ask about the most, that gives them the most anxiety post-graduation. Like, what is the next thing? Which is why I think a lot of them transition into grad school, because there's not really a plan for kind of what, I guess, comes next. And I think that is where like the mentorship thing kind of plays in. What kind of opportunities are you having to do? And I understand that this is absolutely difficult for many students to do internships, especially if they're unpaid, because, you know, many people need to work while they're going through school. And so like, that is absolutely like a privilege point to be able to say like, oh, well, I did an unpaid internship and like that helped me leverage that into a job. But so like trying to find like paid opportunities for work that align with your, like what you want to think about doing. Look into like service learning opportunities that your campuses have, so that you're getting course credit for the work that you're also doing while you're, you know, through classes that will help you connect to nonprofit work or community outreach, or, you know, doing work with like things within the legal field, or, you know, whatever. I would also say that like campaigns are a great training ground for so many skills. And those you can get in on the ground floor, and then in like one cycle, you can be running like pieces of campaigns like finance director or GOTV or field or, you know, whatever, social media communications. Like you can go really quickly from, you know, someone at the bottom level kind of to running key aspects of campaigns. And those things look really good on resumes, because you're doing everything that like business people or professional staff would need to be doing within kind of a campaign space. And local elections kill for young people to help. I'm one of them. Let me just tell you, y'all are the best. You have the best ideas. You understand ground game. You understand outreach. Like those are the things, and those will help you get a lot of skills that are marketable for people.
Amazing. I just saw another question in the chat from Anthony. Oh, someone's hand's up. I'll say this question first, and then we'll get to your question, Blake, but remember or write it down because we'd love to hear it. Anthony, how do you learn about working on a campaign specifically for candidates? I think that's a thing too, is how do you find a good fit for you, and how do you connect with them in a way that's meaningful?
If I can jump in really quickly on this one. I'm sorry for interrupting, Amanda.
No, it's okay, go.
I want to vocalize that, like, yes, working in campaigns is so important. I ended up working in a local campaign for a city councilwoman in my district. So the way that I ended up finding out that she was running was, one, I'm sure, you know, we're all here because we're interested in politics one way or another. So I really like to be informed on who specifically is running in my district. And so I started there, and then I ended up finding out about Councilwoman Yasamin Ansari, who was running in my specific district. And she was at the time a young congresswoman, woman of color. She was very progressive, so on and so forth. And so I didn't have any campaign experience at all. So I actually started off by being a canvasser in her campaign. And campaigns move very, very quickly. If anyone has ever worked in a campaign here, they can say that it moves very quickly. So within the span of 2 months, I went from a canvasser to a campaign manager for her campaign. And so all the skills that I got through that, opportunity, one, really made me realize that grad school was the thing that I wanted to do. And two, politics is definitely what I want to do as well. So working in campaigns can like solidify maybe some of the questions or concerns that you have within this field. But I think it also preps you to work in an environment that is so it's changing so quickly. Politics changes so quickly, campaigns especially as well. And once I added that to my resume, I will say it looked really, really good. My resume looked way better than it did before. And I was also able to, even get a letter of recommendation through that campaign that got me into grad school. So really, you can get so many opportunities from working in campaigns. And I definitely would recommend it to people that are kind of still maybe on the fence if this is exactly what they want to do or not.
I'll just reiterate a little bit of what Justa said is as a person who's run campaigns, and I'm sure Lauren can attest to this, trying to get volunteers is like, it's just your walking nightmare as being on the campaign side, because everybody's not, Obama in 2008. People aren't running to go work for you if you're running a campaign for city council or school board or even congressional race. It's very hard. So if you find a campaign that you're kind of interested in, they're having an event, check it out. If it's a person who you would be willing to support and be interested in, ask, because they will definitely take that into consideration, and they will probably like snatch you right there and maybe never give you back because they're so excited. And like Justa said, nothing moves at the speed of like a campaign, especially after like Labor Day, when you're in those last 100 days, it is bananas town. My only suggestion would be, and you can move a tremendous amount of things, like what you can learn in that time period is mind boggling. But if you decide that's what you're going to do, stick with it. And definitely like don't ghost somebody on it just because people are trying to get elected to office and they're putting a lot of faith in you to be able to do whatever it is you say you're going to do, even if it's just canvassing or something. If they can't get out there and go canvass and you say you can and then you don't show up, well, there's a whole GOTV list that they never got to. So you want to make sure you're following through. But it is a great way to learn a lot. And my advice is always take a little bit of your heart, and it's 15%, but we upped it to 20, and you put it in a box and you lock it away so that when you see how politics works, you don't become a horrible, jaded person. Then when it's over, you can take that piece of your heart back out and try to be a normal person again.
Awesome. I think now is a good opportunity. One, I know I might have missed a question if someone wanted to talk and unmute earlier, feel free to do that. Or if anyone has any questions that have just come up, feel free to drop them in the chat now. We've got about 10 more minutes. Yes, go for it, Blake.
I was gonna to speak on volunteering for campaigns and joining campaigns. My thing is that I of all the candidates that have been running recently in all of my local areas, at least, I have not found a single candidate that I've actually been like, okay, I can get behind their message and things like that, to where I would want to dedicate my time and effort into actually trying to get them elected. So is that just a me being very stuck up about who I put my weight behind, or or is it just more so just the candidates, just the message that they're getting across just isn't, I guess, clicking with a constituent voter like me?
So I would say no. you're not being too picky. Because if they are not speaking your language, or they're not, messaging to something that you can get behind, then there's probably a reason for that. Or they don't know that constituencies like you are important. And so there might be opportunities to connect with candidates to say, like, hey, here's what I'm not hearing from your campaign. So this might not be like, I want to work for your campaign, but like, hey, as a young person, as a college student, as, whatever you identify as, say, like, these are the things that I have questions about. Why are you not talking about, these issues that I care about? Or what are your platforms on these things if I'm not hearing you talk about them? So I think it provides an opportunity, and then it could really help, you could really help shape their understanding of what the challenges are, what the issues are in that district, and what people care about. So I would take that opportunity to say, like, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to try to change, some messaging or some minds, or to input some important issue that I care about into a candidate's mind that then maybe you can get behind them. And they're like, I haven't thought about that. I'd like to know more, or whatever. I would also ask too, are there any current elected officials that you like? Because ultimately they're going to run potentially again. And so those are campaign opportunities as well. It doesn't necessarily just have to be a new campaign or someone who's running for the first time. Like, the candidate or the volunteer and campaign worker shortage is not just because you're first time candidates. Like, this is happening across the board for candidates that are running for everything incumbent, on down. And so if there's someone that, at your state legislature or your local city council, and, I think a lot of it too is about building those relationships, occupy their space. Because if you show up and you start kind of voicing the things that you care about, and they start hearing from you, they're going to be like, oh, I recognize Blake's name. I see that email come in, or like, we've had conversations, they've been at events. I know as an elected official, like, those things are really meaningful to me. And I will start reaching out to people that I know care about certain issues to get their opinions on, certain issues when they come up before us. And I'm going to weigh those more heavy because they've connected with me. They've shown me why they care. They are engaged in the process, and they have expertise. And I understand that it's not just, someone angry emailing me, you suck, which happens. So, I think those meaningful relationships can really help too. So, but also I would say it provides an opportunity for you to recruit people that you think might be actually good for the position. If you have, subpar candidates, or maybe you want to think about running yourself. I don't know your life, but like, I think that, young people can run too. I'd love to see more students on city councils, especially in college towns, because that relationship is symbiotic and connected no matter what happens. The institution doesn't thrive without the city, and the city doesn't thrive without the institution. So it's a long-winded answer and lots of different things, but you can change the conversation.
Well, thank you so much.
I was going to jump in real quick about one of the questions that was asked, the difference between internships in a campaign position versus in a legislative office. So one of the differences is generally in a legislative office, and now you could do that in DC, or you could also do them in your state, or depending on whether it's like Senate or congressional rep, it'll be in your area. Generally, the ones that are legislative are more structured because you're not campaigning. Like, the legislative work has a very clear path of how it goes. You'll get more experience working with people if you're doing it in your state, with people in your community, doing them at the congressional level in DC. It's really fun. I interned in DC when I was in college. I worked for the Department of Ed. I had friends who worked for other people. Some worked for congressional people. It ends up being a lot of fun. It's a big way to network. It looks good on your resume, but if you're applying for something where everybody's had an internship, the campaign experience is, under the best of circumstances, campaigns are like running a 3-ring circus for months on end. And the same person and also 3 other people are all trying to spin plates and do the hula hoop and keep the lion from coming. So if you want some like real hands-on experience, campaigning is going to give you that. It's not going to be nearly as structured. It can also be super heartbreaking when you put in a lot of really hard work, and especially if you know the candidate and they don't win, it hurts. It's like working in an office environment and like in a restaurant is the best way I could describe it, because I have been in both. So one's very structured and clear, and you put on your little suit and tie or your dress, and the other one is like, I hope you enjoy putting together these yard signs, and also, but tomorrow we're going to have an opportunity to meet the senator, and can you check social media? And so you can get a lot of experience. It just depends on how comfortable you are with chaos. But also, it is like a drug, and as soon as you get a little bit of it, you're like, oh, I'm never doing it again. And then like 6 months later, you're like, who's running for office? I want to get involved. This is also the first time I haven't been part of a campaign in 5 years. I'm starting to get like a little bit itchy. So
I'm going to pop in since we only have 3 minutes left, and Justa has to pop from this panel to another panel because she's so popular. But I want to give everyone one last chance, starting with Justa. Just like looking back at you when you graduated from undergrad, what's one piece of advice that you wish someone had given you?
That's a really good question. I wish someone would have been a little bit more, I guess, realistic with like what it entails to go to grad school and on a personal level, and kind of just the time, the energy, the sacrifice, all that stuff that goes into it, and the hard work. But I do want to say that if grad school really is something that you're interested in, do not be scared of it. As hard as it is, it's also very rewarding. Something that I'm personally looking forward to is honestly just getting to hold my diploma at graduation and not looking back and going to school. So kind of just holding on to those moments, and giving yourself that, graceful period to really absorb everything that's going on. I think is really important during these times.
I have moved from the part where it's the advice I got to the advice now I just give to the youths is, and this doesn't apply to politics. You are in your 20s, you're either just about to graduate or you've graduated. Have all the fun you can in ways that you can still back it up. Basically, my rule is don't kill anyone and don't get pregnant unless you want to, especially now in America. You have for the most part, the least amount of responsibility you will ever have in your life. Have fun. No one knows what they're doing, and everybody gets to play a good game on social media, but the reality is not what it looks like. Enjoy yourself, explore, find out what you like, make good choices, but enjoy the fact that you're never going to get this time back again. I will say I had as much fun as possible, and I'm like, thank God I did. I'm so old and tired now.
That was really good advice. I think I wrote down this, and I don't know, it's something that I am still saying to myself. And I wish that someone had said it sooner to me. But I wrote down, trust yourself, and walk your path. Because it's going to feel scary. Like, I know I've had lots of conversations with my parents about like what my undergraduate degree program was going to be and how I was going to get a job. And then when I was in the job that I didn't want in 2016 and quitting a job without a job, like it has worked out. Like, it has been scary, and I think but like you ultimately know what is right for you, what choices you are willing to make, what jumps and, you know, like what cliffs you're willing to jump off of, which ones you're not, which ones are too scary to kind of walk down. But trust in your gut and the things that you have accumulated up to that point to make the decision. Because I think the decision that you make is never going to be the wrong one for you. So just always have in the back of your head that little voice that says, like, I've got you, we're going to do this together, and we're going to be okay, no matter like what the hard decision is.
I guess unless you want to wrap up, Cassie, I can. I know we're right after 8 o'clock my time. To end, I've been taking a couple notes of empowering things that were said by our lovely panelists. And I just want to reiterate them because I found them so meaningful. And I want to, one, thank our panelists again. I know Justa just left, but to Amanda and Lauren, thank you so much for spending an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour, but an hour with us. I know that your insight is invaluable. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. To reiterate some of the things really quickly, think I'm choosing this for myself and no one else. Trust yourself, embrace the messiness, leap, have fun, give yourself grace. The path is not linear, and it is okay to be scared and do it anyways.
That is lovely. I want to also, Katie, round of applause to Katie for moderating her first panel with us. A couple other things I want to note. We don't have, I don't think we do we have a topic for our next political professions panel?
Nothing official. We are open to suggestions.
What topics would you guys like? Please feel free to drop those into the chat. Let us know, or let us know in Slack. So please give topic ideas. And then actually, since this ended up being a lot about grad school, one of the cool things that we're getting ready to launch is a series where you get to learn about different programs that you might see people in like the civic education field doing. So we recommend hopping on to that. We'll get you guys more details on that shortly. That's something that Lauren is taking the reins on. I might be a panelist on that one. Political comm fam. And then lastly, I just want to remind everyone, I think one of the other big takeaways is like find a mentor, and CVP is really good at that. Talk to your state coordinator, talk to me. We mostly know what everyone is about, right? We're a small enough organization to be like, oh, if you came to me and said you wanted to work in local politics, I'd be like, you need to talk to Lauren and Amanda. Like that. If you were like, I don't know what to do about grad school, I would volunteer myself, because I have mentored lots of undergraduates, especially first generation college students, through figuring out the grad school process, the good, the bad, and the ugly. First gen college is not fun. And so I just like ask, I just want to encourage all of you to use the resources at hand. We're all on Slack. Please feel free to message us. And I want to thank each of you for being here. And finally, make sure that you count your hours if you're a fellow for being here tonight. I think I'll definitely stay on in case anyone has further questions. I'm not sure who else will. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you again to Katie and to our panelists, our wonderful CBP staff. We're super lucky that each of these amazing women are members of our staff here. Also, just gonna shout that out too. So thanks, y'all.
Thanks, y'all were great.